How do you view the Eagles from your perspective and just what they've been able to do this year? Obviously, not the best offense, but winning at a high clip, as I mentioned.
The way I look at the Eagles is I think it's funny that I've been saying this on podcasts I do down here and things that I've written. It's that you think that the offense is dormant, but just if you watch them when they need to score, it's like boom, 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 right down the field. It doesn't matter. And I'm not talking about just that game, the week before against the Packers, and those are against the best of the best teams, And so I feel like that they're a team that it's like they know what they have and they can turn it on whenever they want.
Jon Machota joins us right here on Birds 365. Jon, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Football Friday? A big game this weekend, Eagles, Cowboys in Jerry's World. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me
on. Good to see you, Jon. I always say Jon is, and the Cowboys writers, and Jon is the best in my opinion. But the Cowboys writers are the only ones that have a bigger circus, a bigger tent than we do in Philadelphia, I think. So it's interesting. But I do see, and look, man, I don't know how it is inside, and I'm glad to talk to you about it, but I see some optimism with this club, this Cowboys team. I mean, the offense is really good, and the defense looks terrible on paper, obviously, but all of a sudden, Quentin Williams is there. That's a big-time player. They got an athletic linebacker. You're getting guys back from injury that are very, very talented. How are people excited down there about the Cowboys all of a sudden?
They are. The Quentin Williams thing is huge. But then getting back to Marvion Overshown, who he's a fan favorite, but he's also a guy that he makes plays, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. But when he's been healthy, he's their best linebacker. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And so, yeah, I think rational thinking fans know that playoffs are probably unlikely, but you at least see a path to where, this could be a pretty good team next season. They have the 2 first-round picks. The defense has got pieces now where you're like, you know what? There is some light at the end of this tunnel. This isn't as bad as it was earlier. Because, let's be honest, for the first half of the season, we're talking arguably the worst defense in franchise history. And so you're seeing signs there where you're like, well, on offense, there's plenty of weapons on that side of the ball. But can you stop anybody, and especially being a first year with Matt Eberflus, there's a lot of, talk of, this isn't working out. So then are they going to have to go to another defensive coordinator? It just one after another. Not that you guys aren't familiar with having changed coordinators, but the Eagles change coordinators and win at a high level. The Cowboys, it's like they're just constantly like looking for the right answer. And so there's definitely more optimism, but I don't, the whole idea of still thinking the door is open for the playoffs, I think that's a little too optimistic for me, but hey, we'll see.
Jon, I want to ask you real quick before we're going to dive, I'm sure, more into even Eagles Cowboys, but I got to ask you, as you cover the Cowboys, how do you view the Eagles this year? They're 8-2. They win at such a high clip. But in Philadelphia, it feels like the sky is falling every single week. A.J. Brown comments, all these different things. How do you view the Eagles from your perspective and just what they've been able to do this year? Obviously, not the best offense, but winning at a high clip, as I mentioned.
So I got a little bit of a different perspective than most that cover this team because I've been down here for 15 years, but I grew up born and raised in Detroit, obviously following the Lions. I've still followed the Lions closely. And so, I have a ton of respect for what the Eagles do. And just let's say watching the game Sunday night, that's a really good Lions team that a lot of people consider, they're not doing whatever. No, that's one of the best teams in the NFL. There's a reason that Vegas still has them as, one of the top 5 or 6 favorites to win the Super Bowl. And it just, the way I look at the Eagles is I think it's funny that I've been saying this on podcasts I do down here and things that I've written. It's that, you think that the offense is dormant, but just if you watch them when they need to score, it's like boom, 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 right down the field. It doesn't matter. And I'm not talking about just that game, the week before against the Packers, and those are against the best of the best teams, And so I feel like that they're a team that it's like they know what they have and they can turn it on whenever they want. Now, will that catch up with them? Maybe in January, maybe it does if things don't get ironed out. But in terms of the respect for what the Eagles are and what they do, I think you'd have to have your head in the sand if you don't think that they're Well, certainly with Howie, I don't know what team wouldn't want to have him running things, not only because of the players that he brings in, but like they're always active. From a Cowboys perspective, heck, even from the Lions perspective, the Jalen Phillips thing is just such a perfect example of just that's what you want as a fan, as an organization. We're never going to just sit on our hands. We're the defending Super Bowl champs, but we're still going to go out and make another big move. And like I'm sure Lions fans would have loved them to go after a Jalen Phillips at the trade deadline, and they didn't. They're staying pat with what they have. The Cowboys obviously were active during the trade deadline, but they were also already in a major hole at that point. And so I get it. You know, I get people being frustrated because it doesn't look as great as it probably should with the talent that's on paper. But I just look across the league and I'm like, all right, well, if you're down on them, then who would you be excited about? Like, you know, that's the thing with fans a lot. They look at just their team. They don't look around the league. I'm just like, you know, I always joke, and the comp I always say that, you know, there's two guys out in that parking lot at Arrowhead complaining about Patrick Mahomes. You know, there's people everywhere that are just unhappy about everything, you know, and it's like, but when you look around, you're just like, I don't know who has a better situation than the Eagles if you factor everything in the equation.
Yeah, I mean, there's more than two complaining about that. I mean, and once you reach that level that the Eagles have, and the winning is just insane. I mean, it's just the numbers you can throw out there. The second when there's only John Madden is the only coach in the Super Bowl era that has won more at a higher rate than Nick Sirianni. He's got the best road record as he goes into AT&T Stadium. Now, obviously, it's talent driven. To your point about Jalen Phillips, he's been lights out. The point that the league allows the Eagles to go get a Jalen Phillips, I'm like, oh, what are you doing? I'm just from a perspective of, why do you keep giving good players to this team? It's kind of amazing, this run they're on. But when you're on that kind of run, John, and the Cowboys, you have to go back a while. But if you go back to the Troy and even Staubach Cowboys, you know, the expectations get higher, and you're expected to win each and every week. And you're expected to have style points when you do win. And that's where things have been lacking offensively for the Eagles. And it all stems to the quarterback, who is so unique. I say it all the time. So I love your point about it seems like whenever they need to score, they score. And boy, most quarterbacks, and you've been covering the league for a long time. So my thought is, you get into a game, John, you see a quarterback who doesn't have it in that particular game. And they usually don't have it from my perspective. It's like I compare it to a pitcher in baseball, an ace pitcher. Sometimes you don't have your best stuff. Jalen Hurts can play poorly, and then kill you with like 2 or 3 big plays in the fourth quarter. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. A quarterback that plays the position the way he plays the position. So from my perspective, I don't think a lot of people can wrap their heads around the success. What's your perspective looking at Jalen Hurts?
So part of when you were saying it made me also think of, you know, when you mentioned Staubach or even like the Aikman and then in the 90s Cowboys and that, I always wonder how much nowadays the player's salary factors in, because everybody knows what it is. You know, everyone knows that if you follow the Eagles or you follow whatever your team is, you know, like Jalen's one of the highest paid quarterbacks, AJ's one of the highest paid wide receivers, Devontae's one of the highest paid. Like you look at all those weapons and you're just like, all right, then we need to have production there. And when you don't, then that's when people get really frustrated too, because you know, if Jalen's still on that rookie contract, or I even think of like how expectations have most certainly changed in San Francisco with Brock Purdy. When he's on that rookie deal, it's like fine. And I say it also covering the Cowboys, because I've seen it flip with Dak. You know, when he was under that rookie contract, man, that's his rookie year in 2016, and they're just rolling. You know, it's him and Zeke, and everybody's like. But then when he, you know, wants top dollar, and now it's also like he can play well, but people are like, yeah, but he's not a $60 million quarterback, you know. So I think that factors in probably more than it did in the past. But yeah, no, I've looked at Jalen as even a guy like even with like his legs, like watching Sunday night. Yeah, it makes no sense to sit there and use your legs all the time. Like you're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL right now. You're just going to pick and choose your spots. There's no reason to run 10, 15 times and take a bunch of hits. But if they need a play for him to, everyone's dropping back, he can put his head down and just run and go get 10, 15 yards like that. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at stat by stat thing, yeah, he's not putting up the numbers that some of the highest paid quarterbacks are, but he's also healthy and out there. And there's other teams like Cincinnati would probably love to have that. So I think the critical side is that, like I said, that everyone knows how well AJ and Devontae play and are paid. And then you look at them and you're just like, man, I'm kind of surprised that they don't have that production that goes with it. And it would be very easy to point to that if they were losing games. That's the thing for me. Like you're winning, so right. You should be happy and keep rolling. But if they were struggling, and let's say this was a 4 or 5 loss team, I would certainly be like, man, how are you not getting AJ Brown the ball more? How are you not, getting Devontae more
line? It's a thin
What's
line.
That?
It's a thin line.
Oh yeah, no question. And so, I don't know. I just cover the league long enough, follow the league long enough that I'm just like, just be happy if you're winning at the end of the day. Again, going back to the Detroit thing. I mean, there was like, with Ben Johnson, all these style points and everyone's excited. It's like, well, yeah, that was cool. And it was fun to watch, especially if you're from Detroit, you've never seen football like that in forever. So, but at the end of the day, you're also not winning a Super Bowl. You're not getting to a Super Bowl, And so if you get a chance to do that, then I guess for me, I would be with on Jalen. I'd be like, well, let it play out. And if, they lose to, I don't know, the Rams in the playoffs or something, and he doesn't play well, then I can see where you can criticize him then. But like where they're playing right now, I don't really get the criticism, but I also don't cover teams that win Super Bowls.
Yeah. Good perspective. John, I want to ask you about, obviously tragedy struck a couple weeks ago in Dallas with the passing of Marshawn Nealon. Very sad story. How has that impacted the team, in your opinion? You've obviously been covering them up close and personal. I know they had the bye week right after that tragedy, and then they had the Raiders game on the road. Just how do you think, how has the team responded to that? And obviously a very sad story. If you want to share anything about that, certainly go ahead.
Yeah, no question. It was just a wild 4 days because they play Monday night against the Cardinals, lose, and you're just like, when that happens, you're like, it's the Arizona Cardinals. That's a game you have to win if you want any chance of making the playoffs with the tough part of your schedule coming up. So certainly that has to factor in on Jerry being a little bit more aggressive at the trade deadline the following day. So when you're following this team, there's obviously this team's probably not making the playoffs. And then the next day they trade for Quentin Williams, which, we had heard that they were interested when they were shopping Micah Parsons back right before the season started. But still, you're thinking, well, they're not going to do that now. They traded Micah Parsons and got Kenny Clark, and they just paid Osa Odighizuwa a bunch of money. Like they got money tied up at D-tackle. They're not going to do it. And then you're like, wow, that's okay. And then so they make, and then they trade for Logan Wilson, the linebacker from Cincinnati. So then they make those players available. And now you're sitting there and it's kind of like the way you feel like today, where you're like, oh yeah, there's some optimism. You could see like they added some pieces. I could see this defense being better going forward. And then they're on the bye week. And so you're not really around the team. The team isn't around, a lot of guys go out of town for that. And then that tragedy hits late Wednesday, early Thursday morning. And it just, it's stunning. I live probably about, 5-10 minutes from the practice facility. And that's right in the area where all of that happened. And I'm just waking up. I'm completely stunned about it. Like, it's one of those things you just don't even believe, that something like that could even happen. Kid that's 24 years old. He scored a touchdown in that game against the Cardinals on that Monday night. And my one takeaway I'll say now, looking back on it, is that in the moment, I was like, you know what? It might be good for the players that they're on the bye week because, it's a Thursday, and now all of a sudden you'd have to get ready for a game in that. But now that the time has gone by, I kind of feel like playing a game might have helped because the guys would have been around each other. Having that bye week, they immediately on Thursday got on Zoom calls and they made the Cowboys and the NFL made, professionals available, grief counseling and things like that. But you can tell just from talking to the players that following Monday when everybody was back in the building was huge for them. And that, that starting to try and heal from that. But there's no question. He was very, liked guy in the locker room. Just a really good guy, positive guy. Anytime you're around him, smiling, happy guy. And so I don't think that there was the sense that I got anybody that expected anything like that. And so, yeah, no question, it's tough for them. But I really do think that there is some truth in that being together as a team, being back out on the field together. And I think that Monday night in Las Vegas and winning that game and the way they played, I think that's a big step for them to somewhat trying to get back to being kind of what they were before the tragedy hit.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, John, because one of the things I've criticized the NFL for over the years is when they do, and this is, I don't want to compare situations because this is a terrible tragedy, but when they suspend players, I always thought to myself, you're sort of set adrift from the organization. You can't be in the building. There's no support with your friends, your organization, your support staff. Whatever problem you might be having, it might be a large problem, it might be a smaller problem, but support to me would make the most sense, not setting the person adrift and say, all right, you're gone. Well, you don't exist until you can come back in the building when the suspension is over. That never made sense to me. And then the second part, and we've dealt with it here in Philadelphia, some of the highest profile players, mental health, Lane Johnson has been very vocal. AJ has been very vocal. People who seem on top of the world, and as you mentioned, Marshawn scoring a touchdown, to us, it's like, well, what a great day for a young player. And you never know what's going on behind the scenes. So I think that support part of it is a good sort of take by you and sort of look at that situation, because I think the NFL needs to change that aspect, and they do the best. I'm not trying to criticize the league, they offer all that kind of counseling, but I think getting people around each other is the best way to handle those types of situations. In a bye week, you can't, so it's a very difficult situation. But yeah, I thought that was nicely said. Back on the field, boy. I don't get to see every play like you do, but when I think of the Cowboys this year, and I've seen quite a bit of Cowboys football, I am so impressed by George Pickens. I am so impressed by George Pickens and the step that he's taken forward. I don't know if Pittsburgh didn't use him right, but he looks like a big time, well-rounded receiver who can do a bunch of things. As opposed to just a guy who can run past people and go route 50-50 balls. What have you seen from George Pickens this season?
Yeah, I think it certainly helps that he has Dak Prescott and he's in an offense that has CeeDee Lamb on the other side of the ball, and that they all get along. And I certainly think I've gotten the sense that George likes the way that Brian Schottenheimer calls the offense and things like that. So I think all of that factors in. You also got to include that, he's in a contract year. If there's any time to be on your best behavior and buying into whatever the team is that you're on, no matter what's going on, wins and losses wise, this would be the time to do it. So there are a lot of factors. I'm in a spot where I'm very cautious about being just so definitive on what I say one way or the other. And I say this because of someone who's been around covering Micah Parsons for the last 4 years, where do I think that you trade Micah Parsons right before the season starts to the Green Bay Packers? No, I do not think that. But I also don't live in a world where you're like, you cannot trade Micah Parsons, because there's reasons behind the scenes of whether it be leadership, things like that, where all of a sudden you're like, okay, that's fine. Kind of going back to what I said earlier, when you're on your rookie contract, do I now want to deal with some of that stuff? But I also need that player to be the face of my defense, the leader of the entire group. And I'm going to give him $42-45 million per year. I can understand where all of a sudden you start doing some mental gymnastics on that. And so that's the only reason why I'm not, I have a lot of respect for the Steelers organization. And so it would not surprise me if there's things that went on there that just haven't gone on here. They're like things have clicked. But I would say that for me, the number one thing is that I just think that Dak Prescott's the best quarterback George Pickens has played with. And so he's been given opportunities that he probably hasn't had when he's had to have some younger quarterbacks, in Pittsburgh that just didn't work out. And then there's probably some butting of heads with Mike Tomlin. And if you do that in Pittsburgh, there's probably a good chance that that's not going to work out for you then. So certainly it's a little bit different coaching style from Brian Schottenheimer. But then I really think the relationship he has with CeeDee Lamb, I mean, both of them were had to sit out the first series because they missed curfew in Las
it's not
Vegas.
perfect. I've just
What
talking
happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, John.
the athleticism to me is just I didn't see it. I saw like the deep threat ability, but now he's making plays all over the field and
that
yards
touchdown
after catch.
The touchdown he did Monday, like it looked like a play where you're like, oh, he'll get 20, 30 yards. And the way he hit this cut back and just cut across the defense, I was like, man, 6'3", 200. Not many people out there doing that at that size, So no, there's really not a weakness to his game. And I believe he's shown that more here than he probably did in Pittsburgh, because when they traded for him, I was like, well, he's clearly their two. But now, I mean, I believe more than ever, it is a 1A, 1B with him and CeeDee Lamb. And so if both of them are happy with how much they're getting the ball and that, then everything's fine. But, I'm not saying that if there was some struggling going on, that there wouldn't be some frustration. I mean, it kind of comes with the position. So, but as of right now, he seems happy. And here's the other thing is that he does have the same agent as Micah Parsons. But I get the sense that Jerry Jones is going to do everything he can to make sure that George isn't going anywhere. And that could be an ugly offseason of putting the franchise tag on him. And, maybe that's what happens. But I just find it very hard to believe that Jerry Jones is going to let him go. The way he loves offense, the way Jerry loves wide receivers, the things that Pickens has done, the idea of having him and CD with Dak. I mean, this window that the Cowboys are in right now is most certainly the Dak Prescott window. And so to have those two guys out there for him with all the money Jerry's invested in Dak, I understand that people, especially in Dallas, are concerned about, well, what is he's on, final year of his contract. I'm like, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because most other teams that have two great receivers, there is a difference in pay. While not huge, there's 30 and then 25. Like in Philly, 32 for AJ, 20 something for Devontae. George Pickens is playing like he's going to get wide receiver one money, and obviously CeeDee Lamb makes what he makes. So that's going to be an interesting thing. I'm thinking franchise tag is coming as well. John, talk to me about Dak Prescott, man. He's a hot figure name here in Philadelphia. You mentioned Dak Prescott here. You say he's having a good year, and the Philly fans will jump down your throat. But I think he's having a great year right now. He's obviously a very talented player. But what do you make of Dak Prescott, what he's been able to do with this offense? Obviously, you just talked about the playmakers that he has, but the running game's come along. I think Schottenheimer's done a pretty good job with this team. Talk to me about Dak Prescott right now.
Yeah, the first 5 or 6 games of the season, he was playing as well as, if not the best I've ever seen him play. And then against, I'd say there was probably about 2 games there. They played at Denver, and then that Monday night game against the Cardinals where he wasn't as sharp as he was earlier in the year. But then this past game against the Raiders, I mean, he looked like he was earlier in the year as well. I mean, he's on pace to have his best season. And obviously having CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens helps, but they're working through some things on the offensive line. That's the thing. Like when people ask me about this game on Sunday, I'm like, I don't have any questions about the receivers, the running game, Dak. It's about tell me how the offensive line plays. And so that's kind of been part of it too, is when the offensive line has been there, then, Dak's been great. But it's the same way here. In terms of the criticism, there's some folks that, hey, you can't say a single bad thing about Dak Prescott. And then there's others who are just like, oh, he should have moved on from him a long time ago. He's not the answer. He's not going to get it done. And so when you have anybody that's been your quarterback for a decade now, and you don't win a Super Bowl, then fans are going to say that. So
even winning a Super Bowl might not change it, John. I got the evidence here in Philly.
I've seen that. That is interesting. Yeah, no, I don't see, my thing with Dak is I just am constantly trying to look across the league and go, okay, so Like, heck, I even said it the other day, like my friends and family that are Lions fans, you come off of that game that Jared Goff just played, and they're, fans are really critical of Goff. And I'm just kind of like, all right, get out a piece of paper and write how many quarterbacks around the league you'd rather have than that guy. You're not going to get very far down the list because it's the most difficult position to play in sports as far as I'm concerned. So you're just not going to be perfect every week. You're going to have ups and downs. And that's really been Dak's career. This game though, most likely it's less than 200 yards he needs to become the all-time leading passer in Cowboys franchise history. He's going to pass Romo.
Is he on the brink of that?
Yeah. So it's like, and this whole season's been that where, a lot of these records are Romo's records because, it's a passing league now. And so, he's been the Cowboys quarterback for 10 years and he hasn't won a Super Bowl. So there's going to be critics of that because of that. But in terms of his leadership, in terms of what he brings, his ability and all that, there's just not many quarterbacks that you would rather have. Like for myself, if I say get out that list and how many quarterbacks would you definitively want over Dak Prescott? There probably is only 4 or 5. And maybe you can get to 6, 7, but like the idea that people think that he's like a 15th, 16th, get out of here. That's ridiculous. So he's a good quarterback, but he hasn't been great in the biggest moments. And because of that, and there hasn't been those wins in January, then there's always going to be the criticism.
Yeah, Eagles fans, John, I got to tell you, they go nuts, especially in the off season. I call it list season when all the lists come out and Jalen Hurts is, Super Bowl MVP and they put him 10th or whatever. They lose their minds. And I'm like, they think he's singled out for some reason. I'm like, it's the same thing for every quarterback in every city. Dak Prescott, you just brought up Jared Goff. If they don't perform, it's such a week-to-week league. Then all of a sudden, it's like Jared Goff is playing at 35-mile-an-hour winds. I think that's contextual. When you talk about poor offense last week in Philadelphia, it was a terrible, terrible weather game.
I'll give you one real quick. I was always somebody that, because the Lions weren't winning on a very high level when Matthew Stafford was there, and I was always like, I'm telling you guys, he's not the problem.
I talk about Stafford all the time. He's amazing. A better quarterback then than he is now. When he was in Detroit losing, he was unbelievable. Zander can tell you that. I've been talking about Stafford for years, and I said, you guys don't know how good he is. And now it's ironic because he might win MVP. He's probably the front runner. And I'm like, he was a much better player. It's just age, much savvier player now. Very good quarterback. I'm not trying a tremendous season, but he was better when he was in Detroit. He was unbelievable, but they just didn't have the supporting cast. I think personally, I don't know how you feel, but I think quarterback evaluation in the NFL is broken. From the top to the bottom, from the best guys to the bottom guys, because they have the better quarterback, they should win. It's the ultimate team game for a reason. And you do need a supporting cast, which Nick Sirianni talks about. But for this game coming up, it is going to be a pristine environment. That's one of the positives for Dak Prescott to be able to play at AT&T Stadium. He's had tremendous success there, Dak Prescott. They're one of the best home teams in the NFL, and they have been for an extended period when he's on the field. Eagles have the best road record. Something's got to give. What's going to give in this game, Jon Machota?
I think the Eagles being the better team and the fact that they just seem like they just find ways to win. So even if the Cowboys, let's say, come out hot, maybe take like an early lead, I could see the Eagles offense all of a sudden clicking into a gear that you haven't seen recently because they need to. And it seems like whenever they need to, they've been able to make it work. And so I was a little surprised when I saw that the line was only 3.5. I thought it'd be a little bit higher than that, but I think from the Cowboys' perspective, if it is a close game or the Cowboys are to win, it'll be about that defense and Quinnen Williams and those guys, DeMarvion Overshown, how much of a step they take from their first game the previous week. Because before that, getting overshown back and forth, making that move for Quinnen Williams, I would be like, I don't even care what the line is. There's no way the Cowboys can win this game. They just don't have anything on defense that would slow any decent team. But now with those moves and what they've done at really defensive tackle, playing Kenny Clark with Osa and Quinnen all at the same time, they've been able to cause some pressure and some problems up the middle, stopping the run. That's been a big thing too. Before those moves in previous years, defensive tackle in Dallas just hasn't really been very good at all. And you could always point to a big game like this where you'd be like, well, I'm not saying Saquon's going to go for $150, but he's going to make the plays when it matters most, and that's going to be a difference in the game. But now that they've made those moves, I can't really say that right now definitively. It still could come down to Saquon or Jalen using his legs and things like that, but I think it would be more through the passing game and through the air. And so this could be the game where A.J. Brown has a big game. The Cowboys corners are solid. They're not great. And so if you give Jalen Hurts some time and A.J. Brown's running around back there, I could see him making some big plays, especially with how the storylines have been going about, him not getting the ball and things like that. He's going to eventually have a game where he breaks out, and this could certainly be that. But yeah, Dak is very comfortable going against the Eagles. Just being around him this last year or so, when it's come to whether it was the season opener or this game, he has a lot of confidence going against the Eagles because of the fact that he just has seen them a bunch. He's seen Vic a lot. And so now he hasn't seen them with Jalen Carter and Jalen Phillips together at the same time. And so that adds a new wrinkle to it. Yeah. But
hey, by the way, real quick, because I know we're talking offense, defense. How cool is it to watch Brandon Aubrey? If it is a close game, you basically just got to get to the parking lot and you got a shot. Vic has already said, you brought up Vic, that kid's going to make a 70-yard field goal. I don't know when, but he's going to make a 70-yard field goal. What kind of luxury is having that guy?
Yeah, it's been huge for them, especially playing at AT&T Stadium. When he's indoors, man, or certain weather conditions, watching the game on Sunday night with the Eagles and Lions, I don't know that he'd be kicking 70-yarders into the wind and stuff like that. But when he's on that indoor environment like that, it could, if it's a close game late, they only have to get to the star and they feel very confident bringing him out there from 60. So if he needed to kick 70, he could certainly do it. He's made 60 plus yarders with plenty of leg behind it, especially at AT&T Stadium. And so that could be a huge part of this game. No question. Without Brandon Aubrey, they probably have at least two less wins. He's been, huge for them. It's almost like you take it for granted because you're just like, oh yeah, no, Aubrey will make this. I mean, even the players have talked about that being on the bench when they'll send him out there for a 60-yarder and they're just like, yeah, no, Brandon will make this. This isn't even, we're not even going to watch. We already know that. Let's get on to the next play. And so, yeah, it's been a huge weapon. No doubt about it. But I will also say just across the league, though, I feel like you're seeing this more and more. And that, definitely. Covering the Cowboys, it's turned into this, like, I'm sure that they're tired of us asking about the kicking balls and all this, the things that have changed. But yeah, there's no question. I mean, he's as good as I've ever seen, especially from long distances. And
kicking balls are juice, John. Yeah, that's what we've had those discussions too. I don't know how what you can manipulate with the football so much from week to week, but it is amazing how deep kickers have gotten to. But he's the best, man. He's which is ironic because he was a soccer player at Notre Dame. He didn't even play football, right?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and Schottenheimer will take the points. Like Dan Campbell, went for it 5 times on 4. Shotty will take the points, so it's going to be a factor for sure.
That is very true. But yeah, no, didn't play football at Notre Dame. He's a guy that played in the MLS and it really wasn't going the way that he was hoping. And as the story goes, at home on a Sunday with his, I don't know if they were married at the time, might have been his fiance, but she told him they were watching the game and she's like, you could make those kicks or whatever. And it led to him being like, yeah, you know what, maybe I'll work on this a little bit, and he ended up getting a kicking coach and started working on the side. And he got better and better. And the rest is history. But it is wild. Kicker is such an interesting position like that where it seems like whenever a team spends a somewhat high pick on a kicker, it seems like that those flame out, but then you get these guys that you just kind of, he works on his craft and he's got a strong leg. But the key part to all the kicking though, too, is that there is the mental side of it too, that you stay steady, you don't change up your swing. And he's been great at that. He will tell you all the time that a lot of people think, oh, he's just out there probably just practicing 60, 70. Like, hey, let's see if I can make it for 85. Like he's not doing that at all. Like he doesn't want to mess with his swing, change things up and stuff like that. And so the mental side of it and him not wavering on what he's doing has been a huge part as well.
No doubt. John, what do you think, man? Who wins the game this weekend? Dallas feels like they're in must-win territory for me. Who do you got winning the game this weekend?
Yeah, I got Eagles 24-17. I think the Cowboys will play well. But I just think in the end, like I said, I'm just watching that Eagles team when they've had to make plays when they need it. I think that'll be there. And then it just having Jalen Carter and Jalen Phillips out there. Obviously, Carter wasn't out there for almost any of the game in week 1 after the spitting incident.
None of the game. That was before play 1. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't get the sense that he's going to do that again. So I think he will play in this game. So if you have him out there and then just the way Jalen Phillips is playing, I think that there will be those key plays there, whether it be getting to the quarterback or just affecting the quarterback the way that they do. But I don't think you can completely shut down the Cowboys offense. There's too many weapons there.
That's pretty good. If you hold that team to 17 points, that's a feather in Vic Fangio's cap. Not that he needs more of them.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that could happen in this game, and it wouldn't surprise me if it does, is that, in a way, like, honestly, going back to Sunday night where it's like, man, you got those big plays, Jahmyr Gibbs, but you're not cashing in with 7. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not leading to touchdown drive after touchdown drive, And so I can see some big plays to CD and to George, or even maybe to Jake Ferguson or even Javonte Williams, but it's not leading to the touchdowns. It's leading them, either if not taking the field goal, going for it and not converting. Like that's just the way the NFL is. I mean, it's just there's so much talent on all these positions that it's like you think that it's, oh, well, this will happen, and this will be the final score in that. And it's like, just, I don't know, weird things happen. And I just get the sense when you play Philadelphia that there's a little bit of teams don't want to make the big mistake. And so they're a little bit more, hey, we can't give them a short field. We got to be sound on this. And maybe it leads you to being a little bit more cautious than you would normally be. And maybe that plays a factor in this game. But yeah, I'm just not at the spot yet. If we were 4 or 5 games in with Quinnen Williams, I'd feel maybe a little bit different, or DeMarvion Overshown being back from the knee injury. I'm not quite at that spot yet where I can see them beating the Eagles. I still would be surprised if that happens.
At Jon Machota, make sure you follow John on the X platform. Read him at The Athletic. Does a tremendous job there. The One Star Cowboys podcast. By the way, the Star, my buddy's going down there to cover the game. Martin Frank, John, and his son is coaching. Is one of the teams. I guess they're having high school playoffs at the Star. The Star's pretty cool, man. So you guys, I'll tell you what, you guys got the advantage with the facilities with the Star.
It's crazy. I think about it all the time with their first round pick, Tyler Booker. He played at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, which their facility is insane. And then he goes to Alabama, and then he gets drafted by the Cowboys. So he'll even talk about it. It's like he's got it pretty good, Yeah,
he's spoiled, man. He doesn't know what it's like for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah, no, it is a good facility, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Good stuff. John, appreciate you joining today, man. Make sure everybody goes and follows Jon Machota on Twitter and all the other platforms. John, we appreciate you joining in today, man. We'll talk to you again soon. Enjoy the game this weekend. Good luck covering it. We'll be reading all your work. Thank you, man.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, John.
There's Jon Machota joining us right here on Birds 365. Great stuff there. Great preview of the game. Great inside look at the Cowboys team. John, Machota didn't seem too optimistic that the Cowboys.
No, he doesn't. No. Well, that's the thing. He sees them every day. He knows all the wards. We just see a lot of the highlights, and his point. I thought his point about George Pickens. I should have told him. Jalen Carter, by the way, is very close with George from their college days.
So is that right? Oh, yeah, Georgia. That's right.
So he's excited to see him, but you don't see the warts from the. He gets to see all.